Cosmic Awakening, 1991. Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. By Makāula Nakae. April 25, 1991. Pisac. Episode 16. An extraterrestrial encounter on the astral level. Following the mysterious vision of the Eye of Providence, the pyramid bearing a single eye, came an image of two massive crystals, rotating at high speed with their tips pointed toward each other. This vision was relatively brief. As I watched it unfold, I felt as though they were some sort of power furnace, machinery related to the propulsion system, or a primary engine generating energy. The vision that followed next was completely incomprehensible. A round, semi-spherical platform with a large white screen visible just beyond it. The base platform featured a hemisphere at its bottom, supported by several smaller platforms. And for some reason, it was right there that I opened my eyes. Reflecting on it now, that in itself was peculiar. I could have continued watching, so why did I open my eyes right at that moment? I didn't think to wait longer or wish to see what lay beyond, wondering if the vision might transform into something else or further imagery awaited. Instead, I snapped my eyes open as if cutting the feed. When consciousness returned to the room from that inexplicable visionary realm, Tadashi and Naoko had already opened their eyes, waiting for Sakki and me to return from our meditative states. A short while later, Sakki also opened her eyes and came back. We all took a moment to drink some tea and began sharing what we had experienced during our respective meditations. Tadashi remarked as usual that he hadn't understood much, and we all burst out laughing at Naoko's surreal vision of riding an elephant covered in pink sequins and dancing. I realized that meditative experiences are unique to each individual. Even when meditating together in the same room, not everyone sees the same visions or undergoes interdimensional experiences. After that exchange, Sakki suddenly spoke up. It seems my consciousness went off to a UFO, taken aback by her outlandish and unbelievable statement. The three of us immediately asked her what she meant. She explained that during meditation, she had entered the interior of a UFO, met a beguyed extraterrestrial, and was shown various past lives of her own, like a flashing reel of film. She reportedly felt quite unwell while viewing those unfamiliar, alternate lives and past incarnations forced upon her against her will. What kind of lives were they? She didn't share the specifics of her past selves as displayed by the alien, but judging by the fact that it made her feel sick, they must have been staggering indeed. When she asked the alien if she could go home now, the alien replied, "Of course. See you again tomorrow," and sent her back. Amidst the torrential wave of experiences that had washed over us since entering the Urubamba Valley, Sakki's presence surpassed mere strangeness. She possessed insights beyond my understanding. And knowing her familiarity with the mysterious and spiritual worlds gave me a sense of reassurance. She was someone acquainted with the wondrous and harsh spiritual realm. Yet, coupled with her earlier communication with a UFO and this close encounter of the third kind during meditation, she struck me not only as a reliable person at the time, but as someone extraordinarily mysterious beyond ordinary common sense. After her story, I shared my vision of the pyramid with a single eye and the river of crystals and rubies. At the end, I added, I seemed to have wandered inside a spaceship, and there was a large white screen behind a circular platform, and that platform was anchored by smaller platforms, but I couldn't figure out what it was. The moment I said that, Sakki's expression changed, and she declared, I was standing on top of that platform, and my past lives were being projected onto the white screen behind it. Did that mean my consciousness had boarded the spaceship alongside her? I instantly wondered. Sakki hadn't appeared in my vision, yet what we saw matched. Still, I hadn't met a big-eyed alien, nor had an alien shown me my past lives, so I had virtually no tangible sensation of having boarded a spaceship. However, since I had indeed witnessed something resembling a power furnace, I figured my consciousness might have indeed flown off into the spacecraft. Tadashi and Naoko seemed unable to hide their looks of skepticism at our wild conversation, yet our words and actions were so eccentric that they couldn't help laughing. If one's daily life consisted of an endless succession of such experiences and conversations, having one's sanity doubted by those around would be unavoidable. Yet, after giving it thorough thought, I decided not to dwell on it too deeply, figuring that since there are people in this world who ride spacecraft in their dreams, or communicate with extraterrestrials. I shouldn't overthink it. Since arriving in Peru, my worldview had nearly collapsed altogether. If I bypassed mere UFO sightings and began seriously pondering the extraterrestrials supposed to be piloting them, the concepts of common sense and absurdity would completely disintegrate, threatening to drive me out of my mind, so I chose not to think about it too much. Witnessing UFOs didn't provoke resistance because I was seeing them alongside the rest of the group, but the moment it crossed into dealing with actual extraterrestrials, my brain felt on the verge of short-circuiting and shutting down. By the time we finished discussing these bizarre meditative experiences, it was already close to 3 a.m. Feeling the usual sensation of wearing a tight cap around my head, I asked Sakki, "I have a feeling there's a UFO hovering above us right now. What do you think?" She seemed to feel it as well, though she looked somewhat unenthusiastic about discussing it. She drifted back into meditation. About 5 or 6 minutes later, Sakki opened her eyes and said, "It's hovering directly above us right now." I had an irrepressible desire to breathe some fresh air, and thinking it would be incredible if a UFO were actually looming right overhead, I was eager to head outside. After Sakki checked her alarm clock and replied, "It's just past 3 o'clock, we agreed. 3 o'clock? Huh. Well, let's head outside for a moment and take a look." Since it was 3 a.m., we descended the stairs quietly, taking care not to wake the sleeping group with heavy footsteps. The cold night air felt invigorating against our skin. The moment we stepped down the stairs, passed through the arched partition, and looked up at the sky, the white breath exhaled by the 4 of us instantly froze in midair, gazing up at the dome of UFOs. Looking up into the post-midnight night sky, not a single one of us could utter a word. Aimlessly gazing upward, we walked a little further into the courtyard, looking up at the night sky behind the church illuminated by starlight. Next, we looked up at the roof of the adjacent wing, and finally raised our faces to gaze directly at the celestial vault above our heads. Unbelievably, the night sky we looked up at was no longer the sparse, starry sky of just moments before. The entire expanse of the night sky had transformed into a glowing artificial sea of stars. Someone whispered, "Unbelievable." In a shaky voice, I said, "This, whether I like it or not, everything is a UFO. Right?" We turned around as we walked and looked up at the night sky on the opposite side as well. The night sky on the other side of the hotel was unquestionably a radiant ocean of UFOs. The entire night sky, visible from the courtyard of the hotel where we stood, was completely filled with twinkling, shimmering UFOs. Familiar constellations were nowhere to be found. An overwhelming, uncountable sea of UFOs, geometric formations crafted from countless unidentified flying objects simply and quietly looked down upon us. Looking closer at that miraculous starry spectacle, I noticed very large cross-shaped formations in all 4 directions of the night sky, shining intensely in 7 colors like sparkling diamonds. Those crosses were vertically elongated, with the vertical axis tilted slightly to the side. Surrounding those diamond cross-shaped formations, UFOs arranged in triangular, circular, and semicircular formations shone brightly. The smaller UFOs composing those formations continuously shifted their glowing colors between orange, green, and blue. There were no words between the 4 of us. Unable to put the living spectacle into words, we simply continued gazing up at an alien night sky, far surpassing the natural beauty of an earthly night sky, feeling almost sacred. Orchestrated artificially by an overwhelming number of UFOs forming geometric patterns that seemed to stretch into infinity. As we continued gazing up at that miraculous night sky, our necks began to ache, and keeping our heads tilted upward became impossible. Yet we wanted to keep watching. Missing even a moment felt like too much of a waste. Our eyes were glued to the UFO formations. So we lay down right on the cold ground and continued looking up at the night sky, much like watching the stars projected onto a planetarium dome back in elementary school. Silently and steadfastly, we kept watching the dome of UFOs shining across the night sky. As we strained our eyes and continued watching over time, what had initially appeared as single points of light clearly resolved into several smaller UFOs, gathering, rotating, and tracing circular paths. Just how many UFOs were scattered across this unbelievable night sky? Counting them one by one was clearly impossible. While counting 1 or 2 or maybe 10 to 15 might be manageable, the quantity rivaled a sky full of starlight. Hundreds, no, thousands of UFOs had appeared directly above us, spanning the entire night sky. Tears streamed down the cheeks of Sakki and Naoko. I found myself repeatedly whispering in a small voice, "Amazing. Amazing." Tadashi was equally speechless. Though he thought of capturing that miraculous sight on camera, his tripod wouldn't set up properly. Whether he felt the time spent struggling with the setup was too precious, or whether taking photos with a camera suddenly felt trivial, I do not know. In the end, he abandoned the idea of capturing the scene on film. Amidst that spectacle, I remember Jiziwa saying that the Pleiadian mothership would come here during our 1-week stay in Peru. Moreover, the woman who had come from Ayers Rock had also received a message regarding the arrival of the mothership. And now, right before our eyes, an unbelievable armada of UFOs was shining across the entire night sky, looking down upon us. What on earth did all of this mean? Only the 4 of us were awake at this hour. Confronted with a reality so extreme it could only be called outlandish, the harder I tried to make sense of it, the more I grew as cold and calm as if waking from a dream. While only the 4 of us were awake, I figured that an appearance on such a massive scale would surely generate numerous eyewitness reports from remote areas as well. That this dance of UFOs was intentional was obvious at a glance from their disciplined, well-coordinated formations, requiring no deep thought. Was this some kind of message? If this was a message, what on earth did they want to convey? Why just the 4 of us? Was it meant exclusively for the 4 of us? Or was it meant to be conveyed through us to the rest of the group? Or was it a sign that we were meant to share this miraculous experience with the world? The more I thought about it, the more my mind spun in confusion. The miraculous spectacle of the night sky was undoubtedly right above our heads, simply and steadily shining with quiet dignity. There were no words, only the unbelievable reality of the scene, witnessed with our naked eyes, even though all 4 of us were seeing it simultaneously. Eventually, I stopped pondering such questions altogether, simply continuing to gaze upward and fixing my eyes solely on the swirling dance of UFOs filling the night sky. As I watched the formation slowly shift shape, while glowing and twinkling, I gradually felt a profound warmth spreading deep within my heart. I felt purely, simply happy. Inside my head, I repeated over and over again toward them, "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you." That was the only thought arising in my mind, and tears welled up and streamed down my own cheeks, falling through the cold night air onto the chilled ground below. Lying outstretched on the cold ground, we watched the planetarium of twinkling UFOs for probably around 30 minutes. For some reason, words were entirely unnecessary between us. I can express it only through the vaguest of terms. We were simply, wordlessly happy. Because we had spent such a remarkably long time gazing at the artificial stars shining across the night sky, the coldness of the ground began to seep deep into our bodies. And that was ultimately what prompted us to decide to return to our rooms. We worried about catching a cold and recognized the necessity of sleep. Saying thank you to the glowing artificial stars of the night sky, we retreated indoors. Sakki and Naoko still looked reluctant to leave, but yielding to our gentle urging, they finally turned back and began climbing the stairs to our rooms together. Even back inside the room, all 4 of us, myself included, remained silent for a long while, quietly warming ourselves while holding on to the blissful feeling gifted to us by the dome of starry UFOs. We boiled water to prepare coffee, hoping to shake off our drowsiness and warm our thoroughly chilled bodies. As the fragrant, steaming warmth of the coffee filled the room, warm air and spoken words finally returned. To be continued. Watch and listen. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full podcast now. Explore the archive Cosmic Awakening Volume 1, 1991, Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. Volume 2, Ascension 2012, The Golden Alchemy. Part 3, The First Contact. Join the journey. New episodes drop periodically. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 10 to 30-minute hit of real-life experiences, perfect for your daily plunge into consciousness exploration. Subscribe to support your inner development. Thumbs up to help push our channel through the algorithm. Comment below. Share your thoughts on today's episode.